Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to our first Leading Cyber Lady session of this year, 2022. Big thank you to CyberX for hosting us once again, supporting our women in cybersecurity community. For those who are not aware who our Leading Cyber Ladies are, we are a global community of women in cybersecurity where we support, engage, network, educate, and provide speaking opportunities to women in cyber who would like to be in cyber, who are growing their career in cyber and wants to learn everything about cyber. So without any further ado, we have a very interesting two guests today, Karen Rollins from SAP SuccessFactors and Elena Kvochko from SAP. So I would like to bring them to the stage here today to chat a little bit about trends and threats of 2021 and where we're heading in 2022. But before that, please introduce yourself briefly. Let's start with Elena.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you for hosting us today. I am the Chief Trust Officer at SAP, and as the head of the Chief Trust Office, me and my team have focused on increasing transparency and trust by providing our global customers and partners with all the resources and information they need to know and to easily find how their critical workflows and data are protected.
Thank you, Elena. And Karen?
Hi, thank you for having me today. I'm Karen Rollins. I am the CISO or BISO for SAP SuccessFactors. BISO is a kind of a new term, but it's the BISO model that we have here at SAP. I am responsible for the line of business known as SuccessFactors. So I handle all things security for SuccessFactors. So I have security compliance, application security, infrastructure security, and then a security governance team that deals with security risk and analysis there.
Great, thank you so much for joining us today. So I have a first question for you, Karen and Elena. What would be the most significant cybersecurity threat that had the most impact into industry from your perspective in 2021? And maybe some examples, or let's start with Karen.
Yeah, sure. So I think the most obvious one is the one that we experienced in December. That was a pretty global situation and affected many companies. So we, that it was a great way for us to kind of test all the processes that we put in place over the years, and make sure that we were kind of ready and able and active and be able to activate, quickly. It was a very severe level 10 situation. So, it was great to see that all the hard work we've done to prep for something like this was put in place and activated properly when we needed it.
Absolutely. And Helen, to add to what Karen was just said, I would say that looking broadly at the industry, I would say that last year was the year of ransomware. So definitely a lot of companies were impacted by that, and this is something that's on top of the mind for the industry. I would also add that phishing was continuing to be prominent throughout the year. We see the numbers that 86% of the organizations, had at least one user who clicked on a phishing site. Of course, let's not forget the effect of COVID-19 and the pandemic and the effect that it had on cybersecurity. We saw, some of the numbers that cybercrime as a whole has increased by 600% since the beginning of the global pandemic. And of course, some of the organizations such as, healthcare industries were directly impacted by that. But on the other hand, I would like to say, let's not forget that 2021 was also a year of growth and continued transformation for many security teams. We also saw on the positive side that no major partnership with technology, software, cloud companies was also done without the involvement of security teams, right? We saw the ever-growing number of our customers, and even not our customers, inquire about the details of security practices. And we have placed similar inquiries on our vendors and partners. So therefore, we've been very focused throughout the last year on delivering new trainings and certifications, both internally, externally, externally for our partners. And we do believe in growing the next generation and helping the next generation of cyber professionals, and partnered with many organizations to be able to accomplish that. And I would just like to conclude by saying that throughout the industry, we have seen an increase in awareness and investments in cybersecurity. And this is exactly the time and the momentum and the attention that we need to be able to become more resilient and be able to withstand all of the threats that we discussed and like also Karen mentioned earlier.
That's very interesting, and I would like you to hold that because I want to come back to all those great trends that are around and opportunities. But before that, I think what will be interesting to learn is how SAP handles those threats. So Karen mentioned Log4j, right? It's globally affected. Elena, you mentioned ransomware, phishing. So maybe you can expand a little bit how SAP handles it and what can industry learn from SAP? What are the best practices that we are following?
So I'll go ahead and start, Elena, if you don't mind. Again, it kind of goes back to our quick response from our teams. So initiating that response is something that we did across the board very well at SAP. And I think the other part of that is more in Elena's world, where we were very quick to respond to customers and give them, as much information as we could based on the evolving situation. It's something that we're very focused on as well. Customers first, making sure that they've got what they need, that they're secure, and that the information is flowing seamlessly. And that was really Elena's team that focused on that and made sure that that was updated as frequently as they could give it to them.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Of course, you mentioned that we have to be fast and agile and resilient, and for us to be able to do so, we also done across all of the business lines at SAP and SAP security team. We have developed a robust framework and a security strategy. Our infrastructure, as our listeners probably know, is very distributed, and which is also our key to help secure our customers' data and the network. And SAP is one of the fastest growing companies in Europe, with 94% of the world's 500 largest companies being SAP customers. So we do know how important it is for us to be fast and agile, and how important it is for us to be focused on all of those data security and privacy areas. We're also, of course, a top cloud provider that can scale and pivot very quickly. So while we're a large organization, a multinational company, we believe that our size doesn't deter our innovation. We continue to invest in our people and our processes and our technology, and we do constantly improve and provide our customers, as Karen was saying, with secure cloud and on-premise solution, and with all the information that they need to know to make the right decision and to know how it's actually protected. So it's similar to what Karen was saying. Throughout the entire year, we have emphasized the importance of transparency. So of course, it's about securing customers' data, but we also want to make sure that we communicate it to the customers, how we're doing them, giving them an open channel where they can ask a question, where they can even receive a personal touch if that's required. For all of our listeners, we have published over 100 new pieces of customer-facing content on our My Trust Center. We expanded our teams, established new relationships with colleges and universities to be able to identify those early talent that can help us to get to those objectives and ambitious targets that we set for ourselves. And definitely, we continue to host and expand our partnerships, our internal communications. We hosted multiple customer events. They improved significantly on our internal processes to be able to better serve our customers globally.
Thank you. And both of you mentioned quick response, right? And I would like to go a little bit more into security response, because I think that's a very important part of how we address the threats that are coming all the time from all over the angles, right? And we also have a question from the audience, which a person is asking, I'm curious about your perspective, Karen and Elena too, how your incident response protocols and communications plans have evolved going into 2022. So have you trained your teams to be faster and responsive?
Yes, definitely. Excuse me. That's been a focus more and more as, there's just so many more risks out there. They increase exponentially daily, weekly. So being more aware of everything that's going on in the area, in the kind of community, and what's going on within the world, so that we can see, as things happen, we can see them happening within our own environment and notice, that it really is something that we need to pay attention to. I think that kind of 3 to 5 years ago, from my experience, it took a lot more bad things to happen before people really got engaged in it. But now we've got a much better kind of eye on what's happening, and people, taking notice of things that look unusual within the environment, and notifying my team, or notifying the SGS proper, the global security team at SAP. I just think there's a lot more awareness, and that's based on training that we've done, and things going on in the industry, and information that people are getting from different exposures to different things. So definitely increasing our awareness is probably the key thing to making sure that we're as responsive as we can be.
Absolutely, increasing the awareness, and to do that, after every major incident, or even not a major incident, but a smaller incident, our team conducts the after action review, and the goal for us is to continuously innovate, to continuously be better, and learn from our past experience what could have been done better, and apply it to the future incidents. And like I said, we definitely continue to constantly invest in our people, process, and technology. And continue to evolve our internal processes to be able to answer to those rising challenges in a much more agile way. And hopefully we get better every time we go through the cycle. So hopefully, this is something that you can adopt in your organizations as well.
It's such a balance, because you want to be good at it, but you don't want to get a lot of experience at it, right? You're dealing with a lot of things then, if that's the case. But you do want to be good when you have to be on the ball. So yeah, hopefully we get better by learning and less actually being in something, in the middle of something.
And about learning, yeah, it's great to learn on your lessons, but regarding training and maybe preparedness for for incident, for something drastic, do you do any exercise like top table exercises? What kind of trainings and actions usually teams take to prepare?
I'll let Elena talk about training, because that is something that her team kind of focuses on, and most of the security training comes from her area, sending it out across the company. But we do tabletop exercises. We've done it both as an individual company, and then across the board for all of the companies within SAP, all of the lines of business. So we do those a couple of times a year. We do pen testing, where we can kind of see where we might have some gaps. That's not really training for the people, but it's also a good way to trust but verify that what you're doing is actually working. But I think the tabletop exercises for us have been the biggest eye-opener of kind of how good we are and where we can improve. So that's been the most useful exercise that we've done in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely, Karen. Tabletop exercises, and of course, in addition to that, we all know that it takes one person, to click on the wrong link for a potential negative impact. And as I quoted the data before, 86% of the organizations had at least one employee, go into a phishing website. So therefore, we focus, of course, on the security professionals and provide dedicated trainings for them, but we also go far beyond that. We train our sales executives and sales force. We train executives, the actual executive and senior leadership at the company. We have trainings for the entire SAP employee base. We have mandatory developer baseline trainings. We train our external workforce. We do trainings for vendor onboarding, offboarding, and security practices that should be in place for that. Of course, we provide also an opportunity for our employees to get external certifications and credentials, as well as, get trained on a particular industry or a sector, like, for instance, healthcare security for our employees that are engaged with that sector. Yes, and of course, we're going to be continuously launching new modules, training our experts on new, despite how, despite how new, no matter how new the areas might be, we're definitely going to be continuing to iterate on all of the processes and continue to provide new learning opportunities for the organization.
That's a very good point, training. And what I wanted to ask, maybe in the same area, what role security culture do you think plays in building security in organization? I know training plays a significant role, but is there more than that? Maybe Elena or Karen.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, we also we have a security champion program, and I think it's something that we've had in the past, and we're kind of reigniting it again, starting in this beginning of this year, and that's just helping all of the business people that we deal with really have security become part of their DNA. You know, have it. It's something that they think about all the time. It's something that they incorporate into their daily work. We're talking, you know, developers or engineers or even operations people. They're thinking about security as they do their job. So I think embedding that, you know, like I like to say, in their DNA, that security is there and forefront in everything they do. I mean, I think that helps to promote a more secure company overall, and that's something that we get through the training and we get through the, you know, the different experiences that we have. But that security champion program, I think, is very key as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Helen, you asked, is there more than that? And absolutely, we do believe that the security culture and company culture are more than just buzzwords. Security culture and company culture are invaluable assets in the modern workplace. And it also actually often determines the level of success and profitability that organizations can reach. Really important business goals such as retaining and hiring valuable employees, you know, motivating teams, recruiting top talent, recruiting young talent, reaching performance objectives and KPIs. All of them are accomplished with a winning company culture. So we definitely see ourselves as an important stakeholder to achieve that. And of course, specifically to security, a security first culture requires us to understand what employees want, understand their circumstances. I would say that during the pandemic, flexibility, for instance, or even the importance of mental health is something that more employers have come to appreciate. And this is what we saw, of course, the positive impacts for employees, you know, to really be able to speak about those topics. And we in our team hosted specific dedicated discussions to engage employees in those subjects. Of course, I would say that another important aspect of culture is diversity, equity, and inclusion. We know that diverse environments help improve employee engagement and satisfaction levels. And of course, they also positively affect organizations' overall performance. And we do believe at SAP that security culture is fostered not just by, you know, one person or the top leadership, but really by everyone. So managers and individual contributors alike, they can foster that culture. They can embrace change, encourage new ideas, and celebrate the success of their peers and the teammates and the entire team. And that's, of course, what creates that open dialogue and encourages the conversation and prioritizes accountability. We hopeful, you know, and we're definitely hopeful that all of those efforts will be reflected in our numbers and KPIs, and we're definitely putting a lot of effort and emphasis on creating a welcoming culture where all of those ideas could be encouraged and nourished, and their implementation can be successful.
And I think another good measuring key factor at SAP is we do twice a year anonymous, we call it an unfiltered survey, where employees are able to respond back to questions on, you know, leadership trust and how are they managing the stress in their jobs, and how are, you know, and all that feeds back into the culture that Elena was talking about. But it's a really good way to really find out where the hot points are as leadership, of where people are struggling or suffering, and, you know, and it gives us good exposure to where we need to focus as leaders, you know, where the problems are, what we can do to help them, to all the things that Elena mentioned, COVID, the stress, the, you know, the dealing with security issues. It's, you know, it's a stressful environment when you have situations going on. So we do have a very good method to tap that, make sure that we are addressing the topics that we need to address as leaders as well. So I'd really appreciate SAP for continuing that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Everything that comes with the culture has to be in DNA of people, and I think it's very important that we provide all these opportunities for employees to provide the feedback, to be heard, and most importantly, that not only providing feedback, but actually management follows up on that feedback, right? And provides a feedback on the feedback,
Right.
and follow-up action.
Yeah.
It's important. There are a few questions from the audience, so I will ask Sam and mix and match some of the topics I still wanted to cover as well. Now, the big question, a lot of cases coming up is budget related. So a person in the audience is asking, I'm struggling with whether to manage my SOC internally or to go outsource. If budget wasn't a constraint, what would you recommend? Would you recommend I outsource? So what would be your opinion here?
So I've experienced both sides of that. In my former lifetime, I was a security consultant, and I consulted for clients that were doing both. They either built one internally or they outsourced it to the company that I was with. I've seen it work well both ways. I think that it depends on the size of the company, and it depends on the resources you have available. If you're a small company and you don't really have the budget, I think an outsourcing situation is probably best because you'll get more coverage and more, again, that kind of goes with the budget. But I think for large organizations, it's definitely better to have an internal SOC and have it run with your own employees who know the environment and know the nuances and the way that the environment is built. But I think smaller companies, probably a SOC is outsourced is a better situation.
Yeah, and I would agree with Karen. If your organization is small to medium sized and you don't have the time and opportunity to really build the team, hire the team, retain, and train all the talent, outsourcing could be a good way and definitely a quick win to achieve that. However, for all large organizations or critical infrastructure providers, that's usually even a requirement that they have an internal SOC that's open to employees only.
Thank you for those answers. So I would like to go into upcoming trends and threats that you see perhaps in 2022. Maybe something will continue to happen in your opinion. Maybe you will see some emerging threats with emerging technology. Couple questions from the audience as well. There is, Metaverse has released with all the virtual networks. There are a lot of gaming happening. So do you see any threats in that area? Yeah, and maybe you see some other threats as well in the software development world, cloud development, and furthermore. So
yeah, I think that anywhere that anyone can exploit anything, we'll continue to see trends in areas where we may not have seen exploitations happen before. I think we're going to Elena's point, we're going to see more ransomware trends. I think that we're going to also see more trending in kind of exploiting widely used OSS, much like Log4j. I think that we just have to be persistent and attentive, because I think these things are going to happen more and more often, is my prediction, and that it can come from anywhere. So what may not have been something that was an area where you would have focused before now needs to be an area, so you just need to be very aware and really looking around all the time, looking around you all the time, looking at all of your signaling tools, or whatever it is that you use to identify possible problems going on in your environment. You just need to be hyper aware to everything.
Yeah, similar to what Karen said, ransomware isn't going anywhere. In addition to ransomware, of course, we'll see continued phishing attempts, malware attempts. Helen, to your point, cryptocurrency will continue to play a role in increasing cybercrime and could likely be a target for potential heists. On the other end of the spectrum, we do see companies focusing more on cyber hygiene and investing more in security. If you look at all the forecasts and projections, the worldwide information security market is forecast to reach 174 billion this year. We see a lot of new legislative attempts around cybersecurity. Zero trust and shift left are becoming very popular as philosophies for cybersecurity. And of course, we also see increasing efforts to attack supply chains. So that will likely be a higher focus area in the coming year. And with that, we'd like to remind everyone that security, of course, is not something that you can just, concentrate on in one department. That's not something, security as a whole is not something we can outsource as easily as we discussed one particular area. So security, like culture, Helen, as you were asking, is an organization-wide effort, and the entire organization has to focus on this. So everyone, regardless of your role, has a role to play in security.
Yeah, it's to your point, Elena, it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing either. I've seen that across the board, and in my years of experience, that people think that you can set it to a certain level at one point, but then with the ever-changing environment and ever-changing, exploitable areas that we're discovering, you've got to constantly monitor, constantly make sure that you're staying up to date, and things are being, like the version patching is happening and OS patching is happening. You just got to have that constant reiteration of security to make sure that you're covering all areas.
Yeah, and I always think that when we have threats, we have emerging technology, we always have opportunity for growth, right, in cybersecurity area, especially for companies who are focusing on cybersecurity, for growth and innovation in those areas, to be a step ahead, right? But for those who implementing new technologies, don't leave security behind as an afterthought. Always think about security with your innovations, right? So we don't innovate, we don't create technology that can be misused very badly after all, right? I really liked your comments, and I have also positive feedback in the audience. Like, yes, we expect to see more threats where we never seen before. We have to be ready for that. There is one more question, and then we'll wrap up with the final thoughts. So there is a question that I manage somebody in audience. I manage a group of software developers, and we are struggling to build a collaborative technical relationship with our security group. How do you recommend we build security better into our DevOps?
It's interesting. It's coming from the other side. So typically I'm in the security side trying to get DevOps to engage. So that's good to hear that DevOps teams are looking to engage with security. I think it goes back to, kind of what I mentioned before, and Elena mentioned too, security training, having the security champions embedded within the group. I think that from a DevOps perspective, what I would call the business side of the equation, understand kind of what tooling they have, what they're doing to protect the code involved, what they're doing for scanning, code scanning, what they're doing for anything that's going to help a developer. And to Elena's point, that shift left mentality is to have that security further up the development pipeline. So I would engage in the I would engage with the security group by asking all of those questions. What are you doing to help my code be safer, and what can I do to be more secure in my development?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think our listener, she said that, there are a lot of dependencies, right? Or interdependencies or touch points between the two teams. So definitely highlight all of those touch points to the teams, just to showcase once again how connected the two organizations are. And that will really help see the problem in a different light. I would also say engage early, as you build out the product or you iterate on the product, make sure to engage early and include security early in a cycle. And then, always the concept of least privileges helps, when we talk about collaboration between security and IT, and for everyone to understand the importance of security. Definitely trainings, as Karen said, will help raise the awareness. But I would say just start, with like this big message of, look how dependent we are in all of those great areas that we have to collaborate, and see if that will set a different tone.
And speaking of trainings, Karen mentioned that, and we have an audience, and I know that SAP does a lot of gamifying. How do you see that helping community to learn more, organizations to engage more their employees into the security topic?
So I didn't catch the term that you said. You said gaming?
gamifying the
yeah, okay,
education.
that's right. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Security.
From what we do here, I know that there are different initiatives, but we do participate in the bug bounty program as well. So that helps us, with working internally and externally, internal and external participants in that help us to identify through that bug bounty program. I haven't had a lot of experience with the gamifying or gamification part of it. Elena, I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I would say, we definitely explore various types of learning. And as part of our big events and campaigns like Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we always set up capture the flag competitions, or any kind of competitions with rewards for employees where we can identify the talent, really make it fun, really engage employees. And, even if we look at our last numbers, and just the engagement numbers throughout the organization, we have thousands of employees, participating in security summits, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, just the global security events, speaker events, and talks. So definitely providing those different forms of learning, in addition to just mandatory something you have to complete and learn, really helps us create a new environment. And we refresh that every single year. So that creates, that sense of newness and innovation.
I really love gamifying of security education. I think it's so much fun, and you learn so much more when you are so engaged. Now, I know we're on top of the hour. Let's close it with something from your side, maybe a final thought, wish for the new year for cybersecurity community, one thing that you wanted them to do, to learn, to wish, or whatever you feel.
I would just say stay focused, stay attentive. The awareness and the visibility into your environment is what's going to keep you safe. So just stay very attentive, and what may look like something small, maybe something bigger. So just make sure that you follow up on what you're seeing, and to make sure that it's not turning into a bigger incident or a bigger exploit. Or just stay focused and attentive. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and I would absolutely love to wish everyone a peaceful year. But if that's not very realistic, I would like to wish everyone to keep growing, keep developing, iterating, and innovating. And let's build a safer environment for everyone, one step at a time.
Thank you so much. And I would like to add from my side, for everybody, I wish that you bring a little bit security outside of security community, because I think we're missing still that. Just spread the knowledge, spread the goodness, learn something new every day, and just be yourself there. Thank you, Karen and Elena, so much for joining us. Thank you, CyberX, for hosting us, and all the audience who participated and engaged with us today. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon again. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, bye-bye.